It is November, and you know what that means. It's TAD time. CU men's basketball coming at you. You're watching right on Q Buff Spot.
With a traffic rebound there off the Washington miss. Oh, what a beautiful pass. For just the third time in program history, the Colorado Buffaloes have beaten the team ranked in the top 2 in the country. And here comes the court storm in Boulder.
Welcome in, welcome back. Thanks again for checking us out. That's right, you are watching Right on Q Buff Spot. I am your host, Tyson Quiller. As always, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and send me your feedback at RightOnQCS on Twitter, RightOnQCS at gmail.com. Now, don't think I'm going to forget about the football season. We're going to continue to monitor that, stay on top of things. But today, we are going to take a deep dive into the CU Buffs basketball team for this upcoming year and sort of see what's on the horizon for them. A lot of young talent, but a lot of kind of perspective I'm hearing from the fan base, from the media. Well, it's kind of a rebuild year. You know, everyone's so young. Listen, young doesn't necessarily mean inexperienced, okay? A lot of our young players have a ton of experience, and Tad Boyle brought in some really experienced upperclassmen transfers. So let's go ahead and let's start right here. Head coach Tad Boyle enters his 13th season at the helm for the Buffs. Boyle is currently has the second most wins in program history at 233. He is just 28 wins away from becoming the Buffs' all-time winningest coach. For those old school fans, that title has been held by Sox Walseth for the past 46 years. Now, it is unlikely that Boyle will catch him this year, but something to keep your eye on. And here's the rest of the coaching staff that he has assembled. A lot of experience, a lot of consistency. Unlike the football team, this basketball program is really, really steady and solid. Now, coming into last season for the Buffs, the big wonder was, how does a post-McKinley Wright squad look? And with so many upperclassmen leaving, you basically had one leader in Evan Batty returning. The Buffs did start the season off 5-1, but they were beating teams like Duquesne, Brown, Montana State, and their one loss was to Southern Illinois. Yikes. But ultimately, the Buffs finished the season 21-11, 12-8 in conference, winning 8 of their last 10 games, including a win over number 2 Arizona at home by 16 points. After bowing out of the semifinals of the Pac-12 tournament, the Buffs were snubbed for an invitation to the NCAA tournament and just came out completely flat in the NIT. They had no interest as they lost their first round, like I said, of the NIT tournament to St. Bonaventure. Here are the Pac-12 standings, the final standings after the regular season last year. Arizona, after having that 1-year probation because of recruiting investigations, where they came out swinging. Big-time dudes, Benedict Mathurin, and some of these guys, they went 18-2, got themselves a 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. Then, obviously, UCLA. USC actually did very well again after losing Evan Mobley and a couple key pieces the year before. But then there they are, the Buffs, 4th in the conference. Now let's take a first glance at the 2022-2023 roster. And now this roster had a complete overhaul this offseason. Your top 3 leading scorers from last year are all gone. Let's start with the guard group. Keyshawn Bartholomew transferred to Oregon back in March, and Elijah Parquet transferred to UNLV as well. Now, like I said, this team clearly didn't want to play in the NIT last year. Bartholomew really was like the only player who seemed to care at all in that game against St. Bonaventure. So I really think you lose some leadership walking out the door with him. And also, we all know Parquet was a very unique player, very much a defensive specialist. So you're going to have to find out who can kind of fill that role in this year's squad. But this young backcourt with KJ Simpson and Julian Hammond, I think is certainly talented. Simpson was a former 4-star recruit out of California, and Hammond and Nick Clifford were both the top recruit out of the state of Colorado in 2021 and 2020. Clifford is the guy that I think you could see contend for that defensive specialist tag. He's a little bit taller at 6'6", long and rangy. Now, of course, the biggest holes to replace are in the front court. 3-year starting center, and really the heart and soul of the team the last 2 years, Evan Batty, has moved on to the professional ranks, professional basketball in Japan. With Batty leaving, you're going to see a significant drop-off in the physicality of this year's team. That is probably my greatest concern coming into this season. And then you lost the stud forward Jabari Walker. He was drafted with the second-to-last pick in the NBA draft by the Portland Trailblazers. Between those two dudes, that's 27 points, 15 rebounds per game out the door. Now, I did mention the losses of Parquet and Bartholomew in the offseason, leaving us with a kind of a very young backcourt. But Tad Boyle did bolster this guard group with some experienced grad transfer pickups. They should help bolster the team's GPA as well. Senior guard Jalen Gabbidon joins the Buffs by way of Yale. He was the Bulldogs' second leading scorer last year. And check this out, 80.6% from the free throw line. Could be a good guy to kind of help salt away wins down the stretch. Oh, by the way, he was the Ivy League Defensive Player of the Year last year. And Boyle brought in another senior guard in Ethan Wright. This dude came from Princeton. Wright averaged 14.7 points per game. And again, check this out. Almost 7 rebounds per game out of this dude. That's a real added bonus when the guards can rebound like that. 39.5% from the three-point line. Could he be like a Deshaun Schwartz style player, kind of provide that kick-out, spot-up shooting? And now here were the final recruiting rankings from this past offseason. Really not very impressive for the Buffs. A couple of guards, and then you got the 3-star center, Joe Hurlborough from South Dakota. This dude kind of leaves a lot to be desired. However, in the 2023 recruiting class, the Buffs are currently 8th in the Pac-12 with a commit from 3-star guard Courtney Anderson out of California. Now this dude, Cody Williams, has apparently narrowed down his choice to either LSU or Colorado. He is a 5-star small forward from Arizona, the number 21 recruit in the country, very much kind of the mold of a Jabari Walker. How in the hell is Arizona and ASU letting him out of the state? That is beyond me. We better get him set up with like an NIL package right now. So here's what we are going to be looking at is likely the starting 5 guys. At point guard, sophomore KJ Simpson. He will need to be the straw that stirs the drink. He is a high-flying scorer, but this season we'll need him to have kind of a steadier hand. He can get a little reckless with the ball. Last year, 2.7 assists to 2.2 turnovers. That's not going to cut it this year. Like McKinley Wright, though, Simpson can create off the dribble, which is very important. 7.4 points per game last season on 37.7% shooting. Not a bad clip. Then at shooting guard, Javon Hadley is your likely starter. He's a JUCO transfer, and let me tell you, after watching him play against Nebraska, this dude's got some dog in him. Okay, he fought hard in the exhibition game, and he is not afraid to create towards the hoop as well. You will also see a lot of Julian Hammond, like I mentioned before, at the 2 guard. He's also a sophomore like Simpson. Hammond is going to need to kind of expand his offensive game quite a bit this season. Had just 2.9 points per game a year ago, but he was 41.5% from 3. So we'll need him to hit a couple of threes probably each game off of the ball rotation. Both Hammond and Simpson did play in more than 25 games last year, so the moment shouldn't be too big. This is a very guard-heavy roster, so I think you'll see a smaller look a lot. That could mean moving guard Nick Clifford down to the block as kind of a faux small forward. Now, like I said, he is a guard, but he goes 6'6", so a taller guard, and he can rebound great as well for his position, almost 5 rebounds per game last year to go along with 7 points. And opposite him on the post, at power forward, is the one player that this entire season rests upon. Second team all-conference preseason, Tristan Da Silva. This dude is a true artist of the game. He has a tremendous pull-up mid-range shot and is actually pretty effective on the post. Now, you won't see power out of him per se, but his finesse can really put defenders on their heels and maybe draw fouls. Da Silva went for 9.5 points per game last season, and he's actually a pretty effective passer as well, collecting 2 assists per game. And that brings us to the position that we are most unproven at, and that is center. Now, this dude, Lawson Lovering, played in just 18 games as a freshman last year before suffering a knee injury that sidelined him for the remainder of last season. Lovering is your likely starter at this position. He is very raw. But at 7'1", I mean, he's a menacing force under the hoop. He shot just 30% from the field, though, last year, which is really terrible when you're 2 feet away from the basket. And he only averaged 0.2 blocked shots per game. Gonna really need to increase those numbers. He needs to be more physical, and hopefully he's been really working fundamentals in the offseason. Watch for the foul count on him. Okay, that will tell us a lot if he's still raw and a liability, or if he has developed some discipline and can really be an asset. Now, this past Wednesday was the Pac-12 Media Day in San Francisco, and they delivered to us, they brought down from on high to us the preseason media rankings, as well as the first and second and honorable mention all Pac-12 teams. So here are the preseason media rankings. UCLA, a clear and consensus number 1. I too have them at number 1 in my numbers. Arizona 2, Oregon 3, that all matches my numbers. I do have Colorado at 4 though. This grouping, and we'll get into it in a little bit, but USC, Stanford, Colorado, Washington State, and maybe Utah I would put in that group, are all kind of could go anywhere from like 4 to 8. I think they're way too high on Arizona State. I don't see them doing that nearly that well. The biggest movers here, Stanford finished the season last year 9th in the conference. Preseason, they are 5th. Oregon finished 6th last year. Preseason, they are 3rd. And Colorado dropped 2 spots after finishing 4th last year. They've got us starting at 6th. Now, Lindy's has us at number 5. And ESPN, just completely dogging the Buffs, okay, has us at number 9. Now, Colorado was picked to finish 6th last year as well by the media, and they finished 4th. The Buffs were picked to finish 7th in 2020, and they finished 3rd. So, nothing new here. Just a typical media shade. Now we have our first team, all Pac-12, second team, all Pac-12, and honorable mention, all Pac-12. Pac-12, very unique in that they put basically 15 guys or whatever on first team instead of 5, but so be it. Some familiar names, Tyger Campbell. You remember that dude from Utah, the big 7-footer Brandon Carlson's a stud. Harrison Ingram and Spencer Jones from Stanford, kind of a Twin Towers look. Obviously, Jaime Jaquez from UCLA. You can see over there on second team, all Pac-12, you have Tristan Da Silva. And then honorable mention, KJ Simpson, the point guard for the Buffs. Let's walk through the 2022-2023 schedule now. The Buffs kicked things off on Sunday, hosting the hated Nebraska Cornhuskers in an exhibition game. Okay, and this was to benefit the Boulder County Wildfire Fund. That's a good cause, good for them. The Huskers went just 10-22 last year. Now, so bad team. But they did, however, that's Fred Hoiberg is their head coach, they did, however, have the 34th ranked recruiting class in the nation, according to 24/7 Sports. They brought in a 4-star small forward in Ramel Lloyd Jr. He kind of headlines this group of newcomers. And then they have a real solid small forward in Sam Griesel, a real fundamental guy. He transferred to Nebraska out of North Dakota State. Now, I watched this game on Sunday. CU had this thing in control pretty much the whole way. But how about this Buffs defensive effort? That was what I was most impressed with. Nebraska didn't score a single point in the first 5 minutes, and they forced 4 turnovers. Okay, Nebraska didn't get to the bonus until like 30 seconds left in the first half. That is strong, disciplined, fundamental basketball. And, you know, especially when one of the critiques of this team is that they're very young. Well, you would think they'd make mistakes if they're young, but it didn't seem to be the case in this one. Now, it's tough to take too much away from an exhibition. Tad Boyle played 11 guys in the first half. That'll get pared down to probably 8 by this weekend. Jalen Gabbidon got some good minutes, and so too did Hadley. 3 guys who I don't think earned more playtime, Ruffin and the Princeton transfer Ethan Wright. Neither can really create to the hoop, and they're both a bit of a liability on defense, so they need to show that they can be knockdown shooters, and they just didn't do that. The Buffs as a team went just 3 for 12 in the first half from 3. That's a bit concerning. And one more dude, the freshman big man, Hurlbur, that I mentioned earlier. I mean, he is a complete string bean. He ain't ready for this level of basketball. Boyle put him out there for like 30 seconds before subbing him back out because both of the possessions Nebraska had, they just isolated him on the post, went right after him, and just completely embarrassed him. But hey, the starters were very efficient in transition, which is typically, again, where you would see a young team make mistakes. And the Buffs dominated on the boards. This is where a dude like Luke O'Brien really shines. He was huge in creating second chances. So next up on Monday, November 7th, the Buffs will open up the regular season hosting UC Riverside at the CU Event Center. Now, Riverside finished 16-12 last season, kind of middle of the pack in the Big West Conference. That should be probably a double-digit win. That following Friday, CU travels to Louisiana to take on Grambling State. Now, they were just 12-20 last year. You know, I really like how this early schedule shapes up for the Buffs. You know, you had this good exhibition against a rival where the Buffs really put it away early. They got to see a lot of different lineups out there. Then a home and an away game that you can kind of shake off the rust, really get a good idea of how each of these new pieces fit together. But on Sunday, November 13th, the boys better be ready, because they travel to play the Tennessee Vols. And this one's actually going to be in the Bridgestone Arena, which is where the Nashville Predators play. That should be a really cool environment. Now, Tennessee is coming off of maybe one of the best regular seasons in program history, as they finished the regular season 26-7, winning the SEC tournament. They received a 3 seed in the NCAA tournament. Now, the Vols did lose their leading scorer in the offseason, the guard Kennedy Chandler, to the NBA, and their third leading rebounder, forward Josh Fulkerson, graduated. So that's 22 points and 8 rebounds per game that walked out the door. But they do return 3 of their starting 5, including 2 very capable facilitators at guard in Zakai Ziegler and Santiago Vescovi, as well as, you know, kind of their Jabari Walker-esque forward, Josiah Jordan-James. This dude went for 10.6 rebounds a year ago. Look for him to kind of be pushing at averaging a double-double this season. The Vols enter this season ranked number 11 in the nation. This is going to be a challenge for the Buffs. Okay, they need to really become more comfortable being physical, especially after rebounds and under the hoop, if they're going to have a chance in this one. Now, keep in mind, this is just the second game of the season for Tennessee, so they might be a little rusty. Let's hope. The Buffs then get 4 days off, as they will be traveling to South Carolina for the Myrtle Beach Invitational. Here is the bracket for the tournament. Now, the Buffs really disappointed in their early season tournament last year. Looking over this field, I kind of think they have a chance to improve with this grouping. In my numbers, they are the 3rd best team in this field. Texas A&M should probably be a top 25 team right now, and Loyola Chicago is returning about 85% of their team that made the NCAA tournament last year. Now, you will look at the rankings and say, Tyson, what about Boise State? Boise State is currently ranked number 23 in the country, and them and Murray State were both good last year, but both lost a ton of production. The Buffs will kick things off with UMass. They went just 15-17 last season, but check this out. UMass has only won 6 games away from their home court in the last 2 seasons. Colorado has won twice as many in that same stretch of seasons. Massachusetts brings back just 53.5% production from a year ago. So, I think this should be a win. But I would be remiss if I didn't mention UMass did pick up the number 70 transfer in the nation in point guard Rasul Diggins. Their backcourt will be the strength. We got to be able to take advantage of them under the hoop. And one more thing to keep in mind, this is a 1:30 tip. Not crazy early, but that's 11:30 back home. And for UMass, that's their Eastern time zone. Next up for the Buffs will be a matchup with Yale in the CU Event Center on November 27th. Now remember, I told you the second leading scorer for Yale last year, Jalen Gabardine, is now a Buff. Okay, but Yale was actually very comparable to the Buffs last season, basically the same points per game, about 72, similar field goal shooting clip. Okay, they finished the season 19-12, made the NCAA tournament. Do not overlook Yale. Okay, the one extreme weakness that I see that I think we can kind of exploit is that they were 10th worst in the country three-point shooting last year. Very drive-heavy, post-heavy, kind of meticulous offensive scheme. I think if our guards on defense kind of can sink down from the three-point line, make it hard for them to penetrate into the paint, we'll see if they can outshoot us. Now, before we get into conference play, let's check out our Right on Cue CU basketball projections, how they're coming along. Now, we started things off with Nebraska win. Now, it isn't going to count towards our record because it was an exhibition, so still 0-0 on the season. Then a win over Riverside, we're 1-0, okay? Then a win over Grambling in Louisiana, we're 2-0. Then a loss in that huge matchup with Tennessee at the Bridgestone Arena, 2-1. Off to the Myrtle Beach Invitational, and we get a win over UMass, 3-1. Now let me tell you, Texas A&M is a tough team. In that second round, I think the Buffs lose to Texas A&M 3-2. That will move them into the 3rd, 4th place matchup, and that's where I think we're going to get Boise. But no, Boise, like I said, is ranked in the top 25 in the preseason polls. But I just think their loss of production, that they're going to struggle early in the season. And finally, a win over a sneaky tough Yale squad at home. We're 5-2. Now, a couple of notes here. You see, the only 2 losses that I have are both of the SEC teams that we will be playing. They will definitely both be ranked at the time that we play them. Texas A&M will be ranked, but probably by the time we play them. If the Buffs can pull off one of those, then you may be seeing them creeping up towards the top 25 coming out of that grouping of games there. Now, the flip side of that coin, we did lose to Southern Illinois early in the season last year. If there's an early stumble, I think it'll either be a game at that tournament or, like I said, that sneaky good Yale team right after the tournament. Now, the next 3 games are really going to show whether the Buffs can make a run towards the tournament this season, okay? They kick off conference play on December 1st, hosting Arizona State. And, brother, their offense was atrocious last year. Just 65 points per game on 41% shooting. They shot just 66% from the free throw line. Now, they did beat the Buffs in Tempe last season in an unfathomable game, but their 2-guard Jay Heath went off for 18 points in that one to knock off the Buffs. Yeah, he's transferred to Georgetown now. Okay? ASU did bring in 2 transfers of significance in Desmond Cambridge from Nevada, who really filled the bucket up a lot in the Mountain West last year, and Frankie Collins from Michigan, but they're both guards as well. The Sun Devils' best returning player is second-team All-Pac-12 DJ Horn, who is also a guard. This team's weakness is for sure under the hoop. If Lovering and De Silva can grab the boards, even Nick Clifford, if he can be active under the hoop, getting boards, limiting their possessions to 1 shot, I think this could be an easy walk-away win. That'll have the Buffs at 6-2 on the season, 1-0 in conference play. Then Sunday, December 4th, the Buffs travel to Washington. Now, the Huskies do not have a single player on the 1st, 2nd, or honorable mention All-Pac-12 team. They finished 7th in the conference, going 17-15 last year. Their do-everything All-Pac-12 guard, Terrell Brown Jr., yeah, he's graduated. And their second leading scorer, Emmett Matthews Jr. from last year, transferred to West Virginia. Okay, Washington is 314th in the nation at returning production. This should really be a down year for them. I'm kind of surprised that the media doesn't have them below 9th in the conference. But as we have learned in recent years, you can't take any conference road game for granted. UW picked up the 40th ranked transfer in the nation in small forward Keon Brooks from Kentucky. Now, he will present a totally different challenge than the Arizona State game. Okay, that's more power and presence under the hoop, less defined guard play. Defending him could be a problem for the Buffs. But ultimately, I think the Buffs get a win in a close one and advance to 7-2, 2-0 in the pack. Then the one we've all been waiting for, the Buffs will host the Colorado State Rams on Thursday, December the 8th. Now, quite frankly, this would have been an awesome matchup a year ago, as CSU had maybe one of the best seasons in program history, and the Buffs were a borderline tournament team, okay? It'll still be a great game to attend this year, but the new-look Buffs and the new-look Rams are both going to be entirely different than last year. Okay, the Rams are currently ranked number 24 in the country preseason, but check this out. These 3 dudes all transferred out. Deshaun Thomas played in 31 games last year. He went to Montana. Kendall Moore played in 29 games last year. He transferred to Missouri State. And their big man underneath, big man Adam Thistlewood, played in 24 games, transferred to the Colorado School of Mines. This Ram squad was really kind of driven by 2 men last year. First, of course, the Swiss Army knife, David Roddy. He was drafted with the 22nd pick in the NBA draft to Memphis. And then their phenomenal guard, Isaiah Stevens, a real floor general, okay? But, unfortunately for the Rams, he suffered a serious foot injury in practice just 2 weeks ago. He is expected to be out for an extended period of time. So their top 3 returning scorers, with Stevens out, are this dude, John Tonji, who went for 9.1 points per game, Kendall Moore, 6.5 points per game, and Chandler Jacobs, just 5.7 points per game. Yeah, I think the Buffs should win all three of these. Okay, they are challenging opponents in different ways, but if they win all three and start 8-2, I think you're kind of well on your way to an NCAA tournament run. And you're rolling into a series of games. These next three teams you really should beat before Christmas. First, just a bad North Alabama team on December 15th who went just 9-21 last year. This could be a good opportunity for Boyle and his staff, again, to kind of get a look at some different lineups, get some of the younger guys some playtime again before we really start entering the full course push of the season. Then, hey, listen, don't overlook Northern Colorado on December 18th. This is a team that almost made the NCAA tournament last year, and they returned 84% of that production. The Bears have a real chance to win their conference this year. And then you have Southern Utah. This is a team that is sneaky good as well. I mean, we get them on December 21st. Listen, they finished the season 23-12 last year. They got 3 postseason victories in their NIT tournament. Conference play then gets going in earnest as CU plays at Stanford and at Cal on Thursday, December 29th and New Year's Eve. So let's start with Stanford on the 29th. And, this is a commonly overrated team by the media in Stanford. I really think that they've probably done it again. Okay, the preseason poll has them 5th, 1 spot ahead of the Buffs. The hype coming into the season last year was the 3-headed monster front court of Spencer Jones, Harrison Ingram, and Jaden Dallaire. But what we discovered was they were exceptionally weak in guard play. They committed a conference worst 4 more turnovers per game than they forced. And head coach Jared Haas really did a terrible job in the portal this offseason. The Cardinals lost 4 guys, one of them being the aforementioned Jaden Dallaire, who transferred to San Diego, and they didn't pick up anyone to stabilize that guard group. So Ingram and Jones are both first-team all-conference guys, but I think, if Simpson and Clifford and Hadley, can kind of get some steady outside shooting going, I think the Buffs can certainly win this one. But I'm a bit wary about a younger CU squad on the road. How will Da Silva and Lovering handle, just a lot more physicality than they're used to down low? I could also see them dropping this one. So with a loss in Palo Alto, the Buffs are now 11-3, 2-1 in conference, heading to Berkeley. Now let's talk about Cal for a moment, okay? On New Year's Eve, Cal's top 3 scorers last year all graduated. Shepard, Kelly, and Anticevic. Okay, like Washington, the Bears don't have a single player on first, second, or honorable mention all-conference teams. I think this is without question a rebuild year for them. They're way more in a rebuild year than we are. Okay, they're picked second to last in the conference preseason by the media. That might even be too high, quite frankly. Point guard Jalen Celestine is, a solid floor general, okay? But this team is really kind of undersized, and they don't have really any spot-up jump shooting support for Celestine, okay? Of the returning guys from last season, they shot just 38% from the field. Now, they did pick up Devin Askew from Texas in the portal, but, that's not enough. The Buffs should win this one handily and head back home to Boulder, 12-3, 3-1 in the Pac-12. And so the Buffs will then come home to host the Oregon schools to kick off the new year. Now, if the Buffs are indeed 12-3 to this point, I think this weekend right here could be where this young Buff squad really makes a statement, if they win both of these games, okay? Thursday, January 5th, the Quack Attack come calling. Now, do not forget, CU won at Oregon and beat them by 11 in Vegas in the second round of the Pac-12 tournament last year. Okay, they should not be afraid of these guys, okay? After finishing just 6th in the conference last year, the media poll has them all the way up to 3rd coming into the season. They are ranked number 21 in the country preseason. This is a team that just massively underachieved last season with the tremendous pieces that they have. I too, my numbers have these guys at number 3 in the conference as well. Starts right here. Point guard Will Richardson is back and was selected for first-team All-Pac-12 honors. He has started 71 games in his career. Very much like what the Buffs had in McKinley Wright 2 years ago. But his backcourt mate and the team's 3rd leading scorer from last year, Davion Harmon, transferred to Texas Tech. Now, of course, we know a familiar name, former Buff Keyshawn Bartholomew, has transferred to Oregon, as well as South Carolina four-star Jermaine Cuisinart. They're going to combine to try and replace Davion Harmon's production. Oregon also has some real talent on the post. Quincy Guerrier went for 10 points, 5 rebounds a game last season. And here's really probably what has skyrocketed them in people's perspective, okay? At center, they signed the number 7 overall recruit in the nation in big man Kellel Ware out of Little Rock, Arkansas. Ware was a McDonald's All-American. But at 7 feet, he's just 210, okay? I don't think you're going to see a ton of physicality out of him. If we had an Evan Batty who could get physical with him under the hoop, I would give us a chance. But I'm just not sure Lawson Lovering has that kind of dog in him, or at least not yet. Oregon will get the Buffs here, but like I said, if CU can get the dub here, 13-3, they'll be ranked in the top 25 for sure. Then on January 7th, CU will get Oregon State. And man, I mean, it is easy to forget that these Beavers made the Elite Eight of the NCAA tournament just 2 years ago. Last season, Oregon State finished 3-28. The Buffs beat them by 26 at home and by 23 in Corvallis. Oregon State is unanimously selected as the worst team in the Pac-12 this season, although I think you should see a little bit of improvement out of them. My numbers have Cal at 12th, not Oregon State. Okay, but they did lose their top 2 leading scorers from last year in Jared Lucas and Deshaun Davis to the transfer portal. Now, the Beavers do have a low-key impressive freshman class coming in this season, but at CU, not a chance. Okay, Buffs advance to 13-4 on the year as they head out west to LA. At USC on January 12th, USC finished 26-8 last season, 3rd in the Pac-12. They earned a 7 seed in the NCAA tournament. Now, this year's Trojan squad, I think, will be more guard-heavy, with Boogie Ellis and Drew Peterson and Reese Dixon-Walters, all shooting better than 40% from the field last year. But Chavez Goodwin has graduated, and Isaiah Mobley is off to the NBA. I do think USC has taken a step back overall, and they're certainly going to be less of a force under the hoop, which has kind of been their calling card for the last few seasons. Both Boogie Ellis and Drew Peterson are first-team all-conference, but Peterson, at least, his calling card has been his passing game, okay? And everyone he has to feed is going to be very young and unproven. I think CU should be better than USC this year. My numbers have the Buffs at 4th and the Trojans at 5th. USC did have a top 10 recruiting class headlined by 2 massive pickups in a 5-star 7-foot center Vince Iwuchiku and 4-star power forward Kijani Wright. But they're going to be super raw and I think probably undisciplined. The Buffs did beat USC in LA 2 years ago. I think they can do it again here. If Tristan Da Silva owns the paint and the boards, Lawson Lovering stays out of foul trouble. That's an important key. Then I think we'll see, poor little Andy Enfield comes up short again. Buffs are 14-4, again bordering on the top 25 as they head across town to take on the UCLA Bruins. This will be January 14th. The Bruins are the preseason consensus pick to win the Pac-12. Like I said, they're ranked number 8 in the country in the preseason AP preseason poll, number 7 in the country in the preseason coaches poll. For the second straight year, last year the Bruins made the Sweet 16 of the NCAA tournament. So 3 members from the Final Four run in 2021 have moved on to the NBA in Johnny Juzang, Jules Bernard, and big man Cody Riley. Okay, the Bruins also lost their other big man, Miles Johnson, to graduation. But the 2 returning members from that Final Four run are undoubtedly 2 of the best players in the conference. Okay, first you have the floor general, Tiger Campbell. He had a top 20 assist-to-turnover ratio in the nation last year, averaging 4.5 assists to just 1 turnover per game. He also poured in almost 12 points per game on his own. The other dude, Jaime Jaquez, is the preseason frontrunner for the Pac-12 Player of the Year. He went for 14.6 rebounds per game in 2022. And Mick Cronin did another great job on the recruiting trail again, okay? Number 12 recruiting class in the nation. Forward Amari Bailey, he has real breakout talent. And you also secure the number 9 recruit in the nation in the 5-star center, Adem Bona. But he's undersized. He's just 6'9". For a center that's kind of undersized, I think Lovering should be boarding this dude. Okay, you're 7'1". But ultimately, UCLA has too many weapons. And unlike previous years where UCLA has kind of controlled the pace and excelled in the half-court offense, I think this year's squad is going to be pressing the open court a lot more. Buffs get outscored by 10 in a shootout. On Thursday, January 19th, the Buffs return home to host the Washington Schools. Hopefully by this point in the season, we've identified some outside shooting talent, all right? Gabadon, Hadley, Simpson, Luke O'Brien, they all need to kind of be about 35% from three. Now remember, this will be the second time the Buffs are facing the Huskies. Now I had them winning earlier in Seattle. This weekend, the Buffs will need to earn their NCAA tournament spot, all right? CU wins this one going away and advances to 15-5. On Sunday at 4 p.m., the Buffs get the Washington State Cougars. Now, this is a program that's really on the rise under head coach Kyle Smith. Okay, the year before he was hired in 2018, they went just 11-21 and had gone 12-19 the year before. Last season, Smith's Cougars were 22-15, just missed out on the NCAA tournament, and went on to win 3 games in the NIT. And this year's squad may be uniquely constructed to defeat the Buffs. Okay, their strength is under the hoop with a real shot blocker in first-team All-Pac-12 center Mohamed Gouye, and they've got a 6'10 solid scoring center in Deshaun Jackson. Okay, you could see them go long stretches, I think, this season with a kind of a twin tower look. Lovering is going to have his hands full in this one. Look for him to probably foul out, and probably foul out early. This is a classic Buffs loss in a very close game, and they fall to 15-6 on the year. Now, I could definitely see the Buffs drop that one at home versus Washington State, also because Oregon is on the horizon. This will kick off an exceptionally difficult final month and a half of the season. Starting Thursday, January 26th, we're in Eugene. Oregon is tremendously talented, like I said. They'll beat the Buffs here by probably 15, and we all get to go through that same experience again, dreading that the squad is throwing away their tournament chances again as the Buffs fall to 15-7, just 6-5 in conference. Luckily for them, though, they get a really bad Oregon State squad next on Saturday, and we move out of the weekend 16-7, 7-5 in conference. In early February, CU welcomes Cal and Stanford to Boulder. Now, let me just say, if the Buffs are going to make the NCAA tournament, they're going to need to win both of these games. And I think they can, okay? First, we get Cal on Thursday, February 2nd. Again, this is a very thin roster, okay? If Hadley, Gabadon, Nick Clifford, if they can take the point guard, Jalen Celestine, out of the game early, they really don't have too many scoring threats, all right? I think the Buffs win big here at home. Then on Sunday the 5th, we take on Stanford. And remember, the key in this one is, can we match the physicality of Ingram and Jones down low? This one is a classic Buffs win, fueled by a packed house. I think they get the dub here and advance to 18-7, 9-5 in conference, and I think you're right back on the tourney bubble. CU will then go on the road for a week and a half. Okay, starting in Salt Lake City, they will face the Utes on Saturday, February 11th. Now check this out. Utah won just 2 of their 10 conference home games last year. Really bizarre. They had a better conference road record than home record, okay? Unlike in football, there's no real home court advantage for Utah. And we know this is really a one-man team. We remember that from last year, and, I mean, damn, he's good, okay? Brandon Carlson hung 25 points on the Buffs in Boulder last year, and that really was kind of the nail in the coffin of our tournament hopes. Make no mistakes, this is a gifted team. Marco Anthony, their best guard and second leading scorer from the team, is back, and Ben Carlson transferred in from Wisconsin at forward. That's going to provide Utah with some needed additional size. Lovering is going to need to be disciplined here again, as the 7-footer Brandon Carlson is very shifty, very elusive, okay? He will probably foul out in this one. Again, we'll need outside shooting to pull this one off. I don't know if I see it happening. Utah stuns the Buffs, and we fall to 18-8 on the year. CU then travels down to Arizona to take on the Sun Devils and the Wildcats, okay? If the Buffs indeed can't get a win at Utah, then this matchup with Arizona State becomes exceedingly important. But again, remember, this is a very guard-heavy team. Pretty undersized, same keys as before. If Lovering and Da Silva can grab boards and limit Arizona State's possessions to just one shot, I think we can definitely get out of Tempe with a win. And then we will get our one and only matchup of the season with the Arizona Wildcats. Now here's an interesting storyline to follow. Okay, last season their star forward Azuolas Tubelis suffered an ankle injury in January. It was a road game at Stanford. Well, he just got injured again in an exhibition, but this injury appears to maybe be unrelated. Tubelis is Arizona's top returning scorer and rebounder, so this is a big hit. If his wrist requires surgery, it may cause him to miss, at least the start of the season. I think he'll probably be back either way by this game. Now, we know Arizona had the third best offense in the country last season, and they'll be high-flying again this year. With Kirk Ariza as the triggerman and the size of Pele Larson under the hoop, they added Courtney Ramey from Texas. I mean, wow, this team is just loaded. I got to be honest, I don't think the Buffs have a chance in this one. Arizona's going to be a 1, 2, or 3 seed again this year in the NCAA tournament. CU heads home to finish out the season at 19-9, 10-7 in conference. And so we find ourselves in the exact same position as we did last year, kind of just barely on the outside of the bubble. 3 games that our entire destiny is in front of us. If we can win all 3, we're definitely going to the tournament. If you lose 1, maybe you don't make the tournament. If you lose 2, you're definitely not making the tournament. I do know this is a very tough end of the season. Probably a lot of you looking at this image and rolling your eyes. Keep in mind, though, all 3 of these games are at home. So Thursday, February 22nd, the Buffs will need to beat USC. Okay, the good news is I really think they can, okay? Again, this is not the Trojans team we are used to. They're actually quite a bit undersized and inexperienced at the rim. Now, UCLA, I think, is a loss, okay? But like I mentioned, if the Buffs can find a way to win all 3 of these, I think they're definitely off the bubble and into the tournament field. And after losing to Utah on the road, I think we definitely beat Utah in the final game of the season. So the Buffs are now 21-10 heading into the Pac-12 tournament. Again, securely on the bubble. I think probably need to win at least 2 more games to go dancing. Here it is, the complete right on cue CU Buffs basketball projection, 21-10. I think this is totally doable, okay? Arizona and UCLA are a clear top 2 teams this year, but keep in mind, you only get Arizona once, okay? Oregon is kind of a clear third in the conference, but then you have this grouping, okay? USC, Washington State, Stanford, Colorado, maybe even Utah, all kind of in the same hopper together, okay? Any one of those teams could finish anywhere from 4th to 8th this year. I think there's no reason the Buffs can't finish 4th. And here are the Colorado schools according to Ken Pomeroy. Ken Pom also has the Buffs finishing 6th in the Pac-12, 61st in the nation. So then you also have Colorado State, 97th, Northern Colorado, 182nd, and the Air Force Academy, 235th, coming into the season, according to Ken Pom. And my closing pitch, we have the 77th most difficult schedule in the country this season. That has us 8th in the Pac-12, okay? So don't let anybody tell you, oh, this is a rebuild mode, okay? All that, we have a young team or that the schedule is too difficult. Listen, our team has experience, they're talented, and the schedule is not too difficult. It just is not too difficult, okay? There's certainly a road for this team to make postseason play. That should be their expectations. That should also be our expectations. But, as always, send me your feedback. Tell me where I got it right. Tell me where I got it wrong. Okay, at RightOnQCS on Twitter, RightOnQCS@gmail.com. Thanks again for checking us out. You have been watching Right on Cue Buff Spot. And until next time, go Buffs.
With a traffic rebound there off the Washington miss. Oh, what a beautiful